C64 presents a Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there! Thanks for tuning in to another Lemon C64 game guide and review. In this episode we'll be checking out Colony, developed by Icon Design and published by Mastertronic in 1987. The tape version begins with that nice loading picture, and a relatively bland introduction leads to this music, and we have no idea who created this game. You can see on the title page Logic by DPJ. No idea who that is, but DPJ did go on to create another game on the Commodore 64. From the titles page we can also change the game keys and redefine those. This being 1987, we can still redefine keys, the most important one being mode, as we shall see later on. Let's press the 3 key and enter the game itself. Colony is a 3D isometric maze strategy game, and it involves some fighting and some strategy and some ordering of materials later on. But for now we are in a base, and that base gets pretty boring, as strategy games tend to be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some music which originally came from tracks I find on Slay Radio in an attempt to bump this game up, and hopefully it will jazz the experience up for all you guys. And you can see me battling away. First of all, the aim of this game is to stop all these ants from invading the colony, and the colony itself is a base which is on the moon, and in this colony it's run by one guy, which is us, and our only defense are defensive measures. I've just picked up some electrified fencing, and using that I can repair all the broken parts of the fence, and that should keep those critters at bay. It's important to clear up and patch up all those breaks in the fence early on, because you'll be under attack. And there are 2 types of aliens. There's the beetle, which that one is, and we've already seen the ants. And we have some defensive guns as well, so we can fire back at those, and we also have a localized gun, so we can fire back locally. Just begun the game, I'm clearing away all that rotten fencing and hopefully buying extra fencing which we can use to barricade ourselves in, and once this colony is secure then we can get on with the main job of harvesting things and ordering things and accumulating lots of money. And so let's get rid of this main area where these critters tend to break through, and you can always find those because they will be attempting to do that. And at this stage, this electrified fence really does their job. And around this colony, you will find a number of doors which lead to a number of places. And one of those places is the store to pick up wooden fencing. We can drop that off as well. I don't think you get extra credits for that, but you can dump that in there. And there's also a place that sells electrified fencing, which is kind of rail fencing, kind of like barbed wire, but that keeps the critters at bay for a longer time. And there are the full panel electric fencing that we've seen already, and they are the most expensive. We don't start the game with many credits, but the stores are relatively full at this point. And look at that, I'm actually breaking out of that colony just to take out a few guys before I try to barricade myself back in again. And it's very difficult at the best of times. Sometimes you have to think in different ways to achieve different ends, but you can see I'm using those broken fences to slow down all those animals if they do manage to get inside the colony. And this colony is actually a colony of mushrooms, as we shall see later on. around wood stores, we'll also have to find another important building, and that's the power charge room. Every so often we'll need a recharge, and you can see our current energy meter, and so far so good. The laser and the shield is full. You can see shield power, once that reaches 0, then we'll die, and if we fire our guns, that will also use up laser power as well eventually, and at the start it doesn't really make much difference, but I think you can upgrade that laser in the shop and buy a bigger laser later on, so you can be better armed. It's not exactly Robocop, but still you can upgrade that thing. And let's continue with that fencing. At the moment I'm trying to ration all these electrified fences, and I'm using what I like to call the barbed wire fence, which is the electrified fence, to actually save a bit of money and to actually accumulate something like some defences. At the start of this game, the base is open in at least 6, maybe 8 places, and so the aliens can pour in and ravage our supplies. You can see the mushrooms there, that's our main cash crop, and we can harvest that and gain some funds, and we have to do that in order to maintain the colony. And those ants will also eat their way into those mushrooms, and they will also destroy power generators, which we shall see a little later on, and they will wreck the colony, so we have to clean up behind those. So it's more important than ever to actually clear away those mushrooms and put those away in the mushroom store, known as the organic supplies, and that saves those being eaten. You can see cracks everywhere and all around this base, and it's important to at least get the first crop secure as soon as those are ripe. And at the very start of the game they will still be growing, so you can't harvest those straight away, I don't think, but mushrooms do take a while to grow, and you can even replant these and hopefully get more cash later on. But unfortunately we only have 4 pockets, and once those 4 pockets are full, then we'll have to distribute something, drop something, or, well, get rid of it somehow. And if that includes a broken mushroom or a half-eaten one, we'll get less cash for that, and we won't even get the cash straight away, because this is a barren rock floating around in space. We'll have to call for a spacecraft to take all the mushrooms away, and when that spacecraft lands we can also order supplies from that. But that's why at this point our cash flow is still at 1,000 credits. We haven't really spent much, and we can enter these steel fencings. We already have those in store, so that's not going to cost anything. No, the only thing that costs things is ordering things from off-planet. So let's dump some more of this steel fencing, and hopefully now that most of our crop is in, then we can get back to the defences. Perhaps this game is a combination of Ant Attack and Pedro, if anyone's played that on the C64, or maybe the ZX Spectrum, where you have to defend against hoarding onslaught, and reminds us of the Aliens movie. And this semi-open world landscape was certainly a step up from games like Head Over Heels and Batman, which really did have a claustrophobic atmosphere. And you can see, once we've now worked out where we are going on this crazy map, which is quite some screens large. I couldn't actually find out how many, but maybe that's at least 30 or 40 screens, including the outside, which we haven't really seen much of yet. And yes, this will definitely need memorizing if you want to get anywhere in this game. You can see the fencing has been chomped flat by those guys, and at the beginning of the game they will be forever more incessant to try to get in there. And you can see someone trying to get rid of one of our solar panels. Wherever you can see a gap, that's a solar panel destroyed by an alien. And you can see vacant slots there where we can insert solar panels, and solar panels actually are required in this game because they generate power, of course. And we've just been to the power generator to recharge ourselves, if you remember, but if that power runs low, we'll need to resupply all our solar cells, and sometimes if that power gets too high, then we'll blow up the station. Dotted around the colony, we'll also find at least 7 bays and gardens in which we can dump some mushroom seeds and make those grow into some funds. At the start of the game, it gives us full beds of mushrooms, so it's important to find and crop and reap all those as soon as possible, and that when traded should give us at least 2,000, maybe 3,000 profit. And I think there is a maximum profit that you have to get to in this game, but that is kind of a dream which I'm not sure I had, but at one stage I did actually gain quite some funds, and that took me on to a second level which seemed to randomize the maze, and it required heavier taxing because that thing came under attack very quickly and I was beaten away by the critters. But I hadn't actually reproduced that since I discovered that, and so I'm saying that that's a dream because simply I haven't been able to reproduce it. But hopefully if you do get somewhere in the region of 10,000 credits, maybe even 20,000, then hopefully this game will come to an end. But when you complete the game, or rather should I say when you die, you are actually given a score based on the time of survival. So I'm not quite sure if there are levels in this game. Maybe it is only one huge level after all. The most vulnerable areas in this entire complex are at the very top and the very bottom, and as long as you can fence those in, then hopefully the sides will remain intact and you can concentrate then on farming. So this game is split, hopefully, into the action section where you have to defend it, and the farming section where you have to reap those rewards. And sometimes having 4 pockets is a major limit because it turns into a bring 'em up where you have to keep bringing things from all of the map to a specific location and wander around and collect those, and really collect them up in this case can lead to a little boredom, but you wouldn't believe how long I spent playing this game. And you can see this game certainly had potential. Various holes in the floor mean we can actually barricade those gardens in if we have the fences to spare and if we were really raided by those aliens. But again, the aggression on perhaps this first level is at a minimum, and it was only at very aggressive rates in the dream when we moved on to the second section. But for now, as soon as you've barricaded those guys off, they will eventually get bored of chewing through those electrified fences and they will stop attacking. But that isn't happening yet. No, we're still being attacked, and because we have to move basically from room to room, to access different parts of the map, sometimes accessing those to blow them up is particularly easy. You can see we are now outside yet again, so side here is actually very vulnerable, and so a side entrance is possible to block up on this side. So let's try to do that as much as possible, and some fencing should finish off that job. So it isn't as manic as it could be, because the aliens, you can see, have more or less given up trying to attack, and we already have lots of supplies, so we're not manically trying to harvest to try to get more money. So the only problem is to keep an eye on all those defences and somehow manually save our investment. Outside the complex, you can see cacti, and it sometimes helps to wander around the perimeter of the whole thing just to make sure everything is secure. And below here, that's definitely a weak area, and when the aliens begin to get bored of attacking the top part of the map, they'll then attack the bottom area, which is the area I'm standing in now. And this mushroom field over to the right is actually out there, away from the complex, and so you can't really plant much in there, but you certainly can reap those at the beginning of the game. And look at that, those aliens attacking again. You've had to fire that laser a number of times, so the laser power is going down, but those aliens don't really attack as much, so that really won't push that shield power down too much. And so let's dump off some more of our cargo, and just like a Dizzy game, we'll have to rumble through those pockets, and look at that, blocking off our own way. But sometimes you have to rifle through those pockets to get to the right one, and hopefully you can remember the way to go. And here we are back again in the organic supplies. Let's deposit all those, and it really doesn't take time to do that. And I think 8 pockets in this game would have sped it up greatly, and even though the critters are a surprise when they attack, they should be really overrunning by now. And well, look at that, we've managed to neglect the top part, and so they've broken down all of those barriers. Let's start again, and let's try to repair, and let's try to save a few of those solar panels.
The Galaxies and the official sponsor of the 1397 Interstellar Ball Blazer Championship Games.
And welcome back. To recap, while we were gone, Zarda has pulled dramatically ahead, scoring twice against Crockett, putting 4 more big points up on the board, pushing his total to 9.
The solar panels make sure that we have enough power for the base. You can always check that by entering the power room, which recharges our robot, which we've seen already. And if you lay down too many of those solar panels, then the power icon there you can see is red. And if we lay down even more of those, it doesn't matter where we lay those, we can lay those in the road and will still act as solar panels. But eventually, if the icon flashes red wildly like that, that means the best thing to do is to pick up and collect solar panels or go for a recharge to drain that energy. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then the whole base, unfortunately, will blow up, and unfortunately for us, that's game over. And so, laying down too many of those solar panels everywhere in order to recharge our fencing isn't always a great idea, but you can see I've managed to last 10 minutes and 49 seconds, according to that hard to read font, and that means it's game over. But let's return now to our long play. You can see we are still laying down that fencing and recharging those solar panels. Hopefully at this stage we can have enough solar panels to cover all that fencing we've got down. At the beginning of the game, it's probably tempting to use the steel wire electrified fencing, but that of course drains the main power supply even quicker, so you will be fighting to lay down all those power generators and regain all that power back if you use too much. And now we're getting long supplies. Actually, let's visit the order room. Let's actually enter the spaceport and order some supplies. See a vast variety of supplies here for a number of prices, some of those which we cannot actually afford, some of those which we'll find what they do later on. It's always great to order some more seeds, and then you can get some crops on the go. We can order another 10 solar panels if we like, a droid battery which will operate a remote droid, and a heavy duty laser. That's the heavy duty laser I was talking about, which actually powers up our robot. The death traps aren't really worth bothering about. The high power steel electrified fence is certainly worth picking up, and the electrified barbed wire fence as well, which takes half the power. This actually is the landing pad, and you can see on the landing pad we have a robot which is actually a remote droid. If we give that a battery pack, then we can power that up, and that droid should run around and collect all this harvest for us and repair things for us, and it should also take things from the landing pad and distribute those in the stores, and it should also defend the base. So this game has yet again potential to be really great. So let's order our orders, let's get some more power, and let's collect a few items before that time expires. The time in the middle of the screen, that's the ETA of the shipment that we've just ordered, and you can see that says 1800 hours. It is now 14:23, so there are still some hours to kill before we get our first delivery, and so it means that we should yet again move back to the protective measures and retry to stockade ourselves in this colony. Let's just speed up that footage, and whilst we are waiting, let's continue with the repairs, and then let's dip into the organic shop again, collect a few seeds, and then let's distribute those and get those growing, because whilst we are waiting for that ship, we can also grow some more mushrooms and get another crop on the go. When the ETA of our spacecraft approaches, it's time to head on out towards that landing pad, but don't be caught out, don't be standing on that landing pad when that thing lands, otherwise you'll get crushed and that's another game over. Yes, you can die just like that by staying on that landing pad, and the best place to hide is actually in the order room. This is the actual landing pad, and if our spare robot is there, that's no problem, that won't get crushed, but if we are, then we'll certainly lose the game. But you can see as that time approaches, I'm just dawdling away because the power beacon has to be activated, and the power to activate that is actually in rare supply, and then I can dip in at the last minute and activate that beacon, and as soon as I exit that, it should say that the ship is landing and is now delivering all our goodies, and it will also pick up any mushrooms that we've harvested, and therefore we can get some cash back as well. In this case it's quite a slow delivery and pickup process, but you can see the time it's taken to harvest and to reap all those is certainly worth it. It's given us a nice cash 2,730 credits, and so now we can also get back to our supplies. We actually ordered a spare battery, and so the first thing that I will do is insert the battery into our spare robot, and hopefully that thing should become alive. And I'm not actually quite sure how to do that after all this time. There you go. And when that thing becomes alive, it should, or at least it did do on the version I used to have, it should help us by collecting up all these things and taking those back to the stores and defending the place and things like that. But unfortunately on this version, that thing seems to be wandering around blindly, and so I'm having to collect all those packages and distribute those myself. And so in here we should drop off some seeds, deposit those seeds, and that's giving us some more of those. And these white ones are actually the steel fencing. Let's drop off some more of those and collect some more. And now we have more to be going along with. Hopefully our defences are still intact. You may notice that those animals don't really go for the big gun area. They will actually get bored of that because they know you can just blast those with the big gun. So they will go for the cracks in the side, and you'll always find something munching away, some gremlin incessantly destroying things in the works. And the more we lay down that defensive shield with that steel fencing, of course, the more we'll need more power. So that leads to even more frustration, laying down more things. But just like most strategy games, it's a good idea to think ahead, and that means patrolling the perimeter every now and again, trying to defend yourself, and also trying to rebuild more solar panels, because the more that we lay down now, the more that we'll survive later on. And so even though laying down defences and collecting solar panels may be a little boring, it's still worth doing at this point, because that means that we are secure. small game, there is surprisingly a lot to do, and between the shooting and the defending and the harvesting and all the ordering and all the other things they have to do chasing around this game, trying to cater for all its needs and trying to balance the books at the end of the day, of course, and come out with some kind of a profit. It's certainly one of those games which has hidden depths, and you can see I've managed to pick up a trap as well, and hopefully those things should trap the aliens if they manage to walk through all that fencing. And so even things like traps are available in this game. You can deposit traps and collect those, but unlike the Ghostbusters traps, I don't think they really have any major effect. And now that we've managed to secure most of the top area, it really is quite lame to have the traps all the way up there when the lower half of our colony is probably still vulnerable. But you can see I'm trying to trap those things on the major avenues, so that hopefully, look at that droid wandering around, hopefully if we block some of these avenues off, that should mean that those things are put to good use. But the most important thing, of course, is to get back to those mushrooms, and it's great to see huge mushrooms available in this game, and it's almost like a space adventure, only with a little trading going on in between. The game was developed by Icon Design, and began on the Commodore 64 with Dark Empire in 1987, followed by Colony, and then Invasion, which used the Colony engine to invade somebody, and that's a very rare game indeed. Invasion appeared in 1987. They then developed Iron Horse for Konami in 1987, and returning with a very lowly rated Barbarian for Melbourne House in 1988, and they also converted Rockford on the Mad label in 1988, and then a highly rated Rogue game, 7.7 out of 10, appeared in 1988, perhaps their best game out of all of these. And I haven't actually played Iron Horse, but that's perhaps the second best. And I haven't played Invasion either, but Colony is probably the fourth best out of all those games. Colony was released on the Mastertronic label in 1987, and Mastertronic was founded in 1983 by Martin Alper, Frank Herman and Alan Sherman. They got together to create a budget price label for 8-bit computer games, and carried on onto the 16-bit platforms as well. And some of their games, Silkworm, which we've covered on the Amiga channel, are legendary, but that was kind of a conversion. And the games, well, we've already seen Action Biker, Panther, Street Surfer, and One Man and His Droid, perhaps the best Mastertronic game. And I also like 1985 as well, where we control a pod in a kind of thrust game where we collect things. But Mastertronic, with 162 games listed on the database, they still have a major presence on Commodore 64C. It has to be said that Mastertronic were put down majorly because of some bad games, and it has to be said that at least half of the Mastertronic back catalogue are unplayable. But as for the rest, there are some gems in amongst those, and of course $1.99. Just like today, $1.99 is relatively inexpensive, and I remember going into my computer store with £10 and coming out with a rake of these games. deposits some more mushrooms, you may notice that our droid has run out of battery power, and that's a good thing because he wasn't much except a distraction. And you might notice on the top right of the screen there is actually a radar which shows that droid as a square on that radar, and so you can keep an eye on him making a mess of himself. But now that he's run out of power, we can just leave him lying around on that screen. And you may also notice a blue flashing light now in the power bar, and unfortunately we don't have enough power to power all those electrified fences that we bought. No matter what state those fences may be in, and maybe if they are degraded they'll take more power, no idea, but you can see if it's blue and flashing, that means that we have unfortunately not enough power, and if we don't have enough power to power this base, then the colony will die. Graphics in this game are relatively okay, certainly a step up once again from the head over heels conversion that we got. At least we get filled in graphics and filled in places and spaces, and that's a great thing. At least they aren't relatively colour clashed and monochrome, but at the same time this maze isn't particularly memorable to find your way around. You just have to memorise that one way or the other. And as for the music, well, that only appears unfortunately on the title screen, and the sound effects, those are really basic, and those boil down to basic firing sounds and basic noises when we actually get a recharge and when a ship is landing and things like that. But I can't help feeling that our robots could have moved around at least twice as quickly to make this game fast, frantic and fun. You can see I've sped up this footage by 300%, and at the speed this game would really be incredible. But unfortunately the C64 experience is quite laggy, and that means that the patient player really must be patient if you want to play this game and almost play the long game like chess. You can see the blue flashing light is really going crazy at this point, and that's because we are still laying down that high power steel fencing, and that means that that light will flash even quicker. And so until we get back to those solar panels, then we can't fix that problem. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try, a problem just runs away with itself and you cannot fix it. But once again, temptation abound. We are still planting and harvesting those mushrooms, and it won't be long now, here we go, before we order our next supply. And now we can order, well, let's not order another remote droid because our remote droid is pretty useless. We can also order a spare body for that as well, and the droid battery of course is needed to power it. And of all the things, that is pretty useless, at least on this crack, because that droid does not work. I think on my original tape that did work, and similarly there's no point buying the heavy duty laser either because you really don't get much use out of those. Similar the death traps. So all we can do is buy some more fencing and buy some more seeds and hopefully some more solar panels, and that will keep us going in the long run. Let's observe that ETA and then let's hang around until that time. Same dream in which I got to level 2, I actually operated that remote droid with the what look like controls in the middle of the landing bay, which looks like joystick controls, but actually they are still landing lights, and those things cannot be operated remotely. So that reminds me yet again that probably it was just a dream after all. You can see, still killing time, we are now wandering the outback and a variety of similar cacti, and you can see that this is really uninhabited, but if we wander to the north we'll find a nest which respawns those aliens infinitely, and you can kill infinite amounts of aliens and they will still keep respawning. We don't get any credits for destroying aliens of course, so there's no point doing that, but once again patrolling that perimeter reveals our weak spots. And because we are already low on power, I'm actually choosing to use the wooden fences, to use no power whatsoever, and keeping an eye on that time. If you don't have enough power to activate the landing beacon, then unfortunately the ship will not be able to land, and that will drop the goods somewhere in the wildlands. You can see we have returned to at the moment. This is the respawning area, and so let's not venture too far into that. And simply by removing one of our panels means that we can have access to this. But if we do not, for some reason, activate the landing beacon, then all those things will be scattered. And so that's another unique aspect of this game. Sometimes you have to go looking for the items that you bought in the shop in the first place, and that could be annoying to some, but I actually find that quite attractive. And so this game isn't very deep. In fact, it's very shallow, and it won't take the player long to get into this game. And finally we are laying down some more of those solid panels. It's taken half the game before I've actually done that, but as you can see we've laid down quite some already. But this game doesn't take that long to figure out, and as you can see we are heading straight towards another delivery, and that means that we can expect some more seeds and some more armaments, hopefully some more panels that we can defend this base. And so perhaps this game repeats infinitely, perhaps you can play this game all day, but I certainly remember killing time playing this game. Although Colony is a little deep, not rather deep, but just a little bit deep, it gives the average player something to get their teeth into. It's certainly not a massive dungeon game which takes a lot of exploring. It's certainly not a great spell casting game or anything like that. It's just a bring 'em, collect 'em up, and sometimes it encounters some light fighting action as well. So even though this game could have been better, it certainly could have had better features, and it certainly has some kind of variety on offer. You can see a ship landing right now, clearing away those aliens. That's always a nice touch. And our mushrooms have been turned into cash, so that's always a great element. It's always a great feeling to see all our hard work turned into that cash. And you can see we did not activate the beacon, and so our supplies are scattered throughout that landscape, and so you won't find anything here. And our power, well, we did distribute some more power, and that's actually slowed down, and it's rapidly flashing away like it was. And let's just check the power room. We haven't got much in there, to be honest, but at least we're not running out of power. And so let's investigate that wilderness. So yes, I think this game is not quite as deep as I expected it to be, but then again, as I say, for $1.99 this is deeper than Manic Miner and most of those other games that we got for $1.99, and it's certainly not a pushover by any stretch. So let's move on and take a look at the scores. I managed to find 3 scores for this game. Your Commodore gave it 50%, Commodore user gave this game 50%, and Zap gave Colony 22% in August of 1987. Julian Rignall said on first play he managed to get 4 with this, and on second play he just found it very boring, so he commented that Colony doesn't really have much replay value, but I really did play this quite a number of times, and so I'll probably give this a higher rating than those guys. It certainly deserves, in my book, a 6 out of 10, but the Lemon 64 crew only give this a 5.5, and so that brings the average score all the way up there to 4.5 out of 10, so it doesn't quite make it, but you can see it did try at least. And here are our supplies and what look like honey pots, and it's great to see different icons and things like that. So they really did try with the radar and everything else. And there is a cheat for this game actually. If you lay down solid panels in place of that fencing, then the animals cannot munch through solid panels, and so they tend to leave those alone. And for similar reasons they can't munch through batteries either. so if you lay those lying around, that's an inexpensive way to defend our fortress. So thank you for viewing another Lemon 64 play guide and review. I hope this has given you some insights how to play this game. That's certainly as far as I've got with it. And of course, if you have any tips to share, why not share those in the comments. I'd certainly be interested in anybody who's got anywhere with this game, or whether it simply just wraps around forever. And so thank you once again, and I hope to see you again on another play guide sometime soon. Thank you.